All right, 7:02. I'm going to call the September 26th meeting of the Cable Oversight Committee to order. We're following guidelines which were mandated by the governor for the COVID crisis in 2019. I will take a roll call and to confirm that everyone can hear me. Mr. Hassinger?
I'm here.
Mr. McCavey?
Here.
Mr. Berger?
Yeah.
Mr. Molesky?
Here.
And Attorney Bill August?
Here.
Sure. I'm Chairman Bob Vitoma. All right, so we're all in attendance and can hear. I'm going to take some things out of order and move Mr. August to the top of the list. He is here to discuss the negotiations with the Verizon license, and the members were delivered a draft with the agenda. So, Bill, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Thank you all. Good to see you all again. The Verizon license, I will say, is very, very, very good in terms of the financial package. And I'd like to start with that because my experience is that, you know, it's really these licenses have become very important to the different towns and cities in terms of ensuring the longevity of the local channels and the local studio, which have increased in importance over the years for many reasons that we're all familiar with. And it's the financial package and the renewal license that either ensures that or doesn't ensure that. In particular, the annual funding, which is the 5% payments to the town, Charter, Spectrum, they use both names, pays 5% of its annual gross revenues for PEG access purposes, public educational and governmental access purposes. You can't name many other industries that do that. So just to put it in perspective, because, you know, we can be frustrated with the cable companies at times, but of all the major industries that use the public ways, they're really the only one that pays that much money. 5% of gross revenues is the maximum permitted by law. That's the number we had in the existing license, which is expiring this month. That's the same number that Charter Spectrum pays. And that's the lion's share of the money under the license. So we're in good shape on that. By the way, most Charter Spectrum towns do not have the 5%, although they're getting there little by little. We had the 5%. I have to tip my hat to Bob Hassinger because he managed to get Verizon into Grafton and finish that license process before Verizon stopped doing the licensing. That's why so few towns have Verizon. And it was because Verizon was so anxious to get in that in their first initial licenses, they were coming in at 5%, even though Charter wasn't at 5%. And Verizon's doing that became the platform for us to get Charter Spectrum to do that. All right, so we're at the maximum where most of the money comes from. The second bucket of money, other than the annual 5%, is under the Cable Act. We're allowed to negotiate for an equipment funding, which is above and beyond the 5%, which is seen as primarily operational, although it doesn't have to be totally operational. So the Cable Act, it's a beautiful law. In addition to allowing municipalities to require up to 5%, it requires them to get equipment funding above the 5%. The Verizon license pays out for their 5-year license term $75,000 in capital above and beyond the 5%. That averages $15,000 a year. That's more than under the expiring license, which averages $13,000 a year. So we have some improvement, which is actually a big concession because they've lost about 15-20% of their subscribers. I forget the exact number, but every time I look, it's just like getting closer to 20 or over 20%. So we had some growth in capital funding. It's also significantly more than Charter in terms of the capital payments, which is not surprising because Verizon has more subscribers than Charter. However, even on a per subscriber basis, Verizon is paying more capital than Charter, when you proportionalize it. So those are the two big buckets. And we did great. Also, so I don't forget, I could say this at the end, but I'll say it now. I feel confident about the financials, and I really want to thank Bob DeToma and Bob Berger, because like early in the process, they gave me equipment lists and needs statements, and I would point to those to John Marr, the negotiator, saying this town, this isn't a big fancy 100-page consultant's document, but it really hits the main points. And at every single turn, I'd have a lot of questions along the way when as Bob Hassinger knows, when you were working on the verbiage, and Bob DeToma and Bob Berger, thank you very much, because you guys were always there and very supportive. The other main thing in the license that also shows how the Verizon license is stronger than the Charter Spectrum license. Charter provides for 3 graphed-in community channels, PEG access channels, which is pretty damn good. But Verizon provides 4. Verizon does the 3 standard definition, like Charter, but they also offer a high definition PEG channel that the town has the option under this license of using, either to just simulcast an existing PEG channel, or you can switch on 180-day notice to make it a 4th channel for original programming and not simulcast. That's a pretty significant advantage of the or benefit, I should, of the Verizon relative to the Charter. 4 and 1 is in HD, and that's a pretty hot subject for the people who are doing production, because they want to feel competitive with the commercial channels. And if you have the opportunity, and the PEG Studios are like a learning experience for everyone. You're constantly figuring out things and how to provide your community with programming, and you want to be competitive. And having a high definition local channel is part of like that learning curve and trying to figure it out and what you can do with it and what you can't do with it. In terms of the verbiage in this license, I'd like to take credit for all the language in here, but it's based on precedents that I have already negotiated with Verizon in other communities. It is not their template. It is not their boilerplate. It is based on a document in large part, not totally. They made more changes this time around than I expected, that we had to kind of beat down on these little technical things. But it's based on a document that's been around the block many times in other municipalities for the last 5 years, and it works. Things can always come up that we haven't seen, but it's been around. You're using pretty tried and true document, so that can give us some confidence level. and that they that space, those are really my main highlights. Of course, it's a non-exclusive license. All these licenses, that's good to know for committee members who might have not, like a lot of people in every town, people ask, why is there only two companies? Do they have some special arrangement or exclusive? It's totally non-exclusive. And there just aren't other competitors because of the no one wants to compete when two people have like 90, most of the homes locked up. One other thing, there's no rate regulation. Obviously, we're not allowed to regulate rates because federal government deregulated rates. And we're not allowed to regulate the channel lineup or the selection of programming, rates and programming. As we wrap it up, if the selectmen or the public have questions, those are the most common questions. Why do we have all these crappy channels, or why don't we have the golf channel? We are not allowed to touch that. And even if we were to try to, they would not accommodate that, because they're very jealously don't want to waive their legal right to not be program or rate deregulated. And then one other thing I always like to mention, just to keep on your radar screen, and in some ways is one of the most important clauses in a license, because it can do a lot of damage if people aren't aware of it. Although I've never seen it result in any damage, but there is a level playing field clause in every Verizon license, every Charter license, and every Comcast license. Every single one, which they're saying, oh, we're paying you 5% of gross. If you authorize another cable company to come in and say, oh, they're nice guys, they only have to pay 4%. Then they have the right to go down to the lower level playing field. So if there are any new entrants coming to your city, you have to be, try to negotiate a level playing field, or if you give the other company certain accommodations to reduce the payments on a proportional basis, then you'd be at risk of Verizon and Charter seeking to unravel some of their commitments. That's never been exercised, to my knowledge. I know it's never been exercised for any of my communities, and I'm always doing about 10 of these a year. So I've seen a lot, and they haven't done it. But those are kind of the highlights. I think it's a pretty standard license. I know it's a very standard, good, decent license in terms of the verbiage, although it's not perfect, of course, because there are things, where they reserve the right to. One thing that's new. This is new. I mean, I've mentioned it to Bob DePatoma and Bob Berger. I don't know if I mentioned it to the committee earlier on, but in 2019 or so, started in 2018, the FCC adopted a rule which said some of the things that used to be in a license and provided at no charge to the town, like the complimentary service to the public schools or the municipal buildings, the courtesy accounts, the FCC ruled, it's called the in-kind benefit rule. If we are requiring 5% plus additional in-kind benefits like free service, the company has a right to say, whoa, the federal law says you can't get more than 5% from us, except for the PEG access capital. And now you're getting free service to the schools. Now you're making us pay the operational maintenance costs for an INET. That's like making us pay more than 5%. So the FCC said the company has a right to charge, either deduct that from the 5% or give the town a right to pay for it. Verizon has never exercised that right. but they reserve that right. It's in the license. That's new. Charter did exercise it for non-basic. Bob, remember when we got a letter saying
Yes.
state law says free service, free basic service to the schools, and if you're getting beyond basic, there's no legal reason we should give that away as a freebie. So if you want, they said if you want that, you have to pay for it. Now the federal government took a similar position and said any free service, they have a right to charge for it. But Verizon hasn't charged for the basic. And Charter is insisting on that, and it's it's called the FCC 621 order, because it's based on section 621 in the Cable Act, applies to in-kind benefits. Even if it were applied, I think it would be fairly minor impact, because the total cost of getting basic service to your schools and municipal buildings, probably be a few thousand a year, which hurts, but it's not like really deleterious in any kind of major way. When I don't know if you remember, but when the FCC announced that it wanted to adopt these rules, everyone freaked out, because when the FCC first announced it, they said, we want the companies to be able to also be compensated for providing each and every access channel at market value. That could be $100,000, the value of 3 access channels. But then when the FCC in 2019 actually issued the rules, they applied it more narrowly, and they didn't say that. In fact, they said we're going to revisit the issue of access channels, but we won't cover that. So some of the big things that made everyone nervous never got adopted. They said they would revisit it, but then the FCC changed and they just dropped it for now.
Bill, can I open this up to?
Yes, yeah, because you better.
questions
That's why I
anybody
said you better mute me, because once I started.
has? Mr. Hassinger, do you have any questions?
No, just a broad question to Bill. The number of subscribers are going down, or at least the percentage of people are cutting the cable. Can you talk at all about that, particularly, what's happening and long term? About every month when we have a meeting, I worry about the money's going down and the costs are going up to do what we do.
Right. Yeah, you're in good company. That's like the $64,000 question. Everyone is seeing slippage in subscriber counts, pretty significant. Sometimes 20, I saw like 20% or more in a few towns, like over 4 years and stuff. So that's a major loss of revenues, and your money is a percentage of revenues. Now that's offset in part by the rate increases in terms of your funding, because let's say you lose 7% of your subscribers in a year. I don't know if it's that high, or 5%. If there's a rate increase of 4%, then the gross revenues are really going down, not proportional to the loss of subscribers, but proportional to the net difference in the two values. So that offsets it and slows it down somewhat. But it's really one of these crystal ball questions. I could see it getting a lot worse, because with the younger generation, we all grew up with cable practically, since the advent of multi-channel TV. And the younger generation, they're streaming, and they're into their watching videos on their laptops as much as they are on the TV. So they have a higher propensity, to do the cord cutting. I heard it's plateauing a little bit. It's slowing down the rate of loss. Like Netflix stopped growing and they plateaued for a while. But there's so many new entrants looking at so many new technologies that it's really a crystal ball. Can't predict the future on that. But it is perhaps a reminder to try to, well, actually, you know what? I heard of one new response to that question, Bob, this in two places this year. Two municipalities that Lexington passed a bylaw to have an annual town of Lexington payment to the PEG studio to offset some of the slippage. And then in Somerville also, the PEG access, the public access provider, made a big deal about wanting a much larger share of the 5%. And this is all public record, both of these towns, cities, it's in the news, everything. They also adopted an ordinance to allocate, to have the city of Somerville pay for the educational and governmental studio, which is in that city, they're divided. They have one studio for public access to make it, to enable access, the public access, to get more of the annual funding from the cable company. So some towns, like, and during the pandemic, and I've heard at a lot of public hearings, where was it just the other night? Oh yeah, Belmont. The selectmen were saying how there was zero local newspaper coverage of like where to get public health services during the pandemic. Like in those first 6 months when we had no idea if we were going into like, all that was emergency information sharing. And you could turn on the TV networks and get like statewide information, but the only local public health information was coming from the Belmont studio. So some of the towns are willing to partially subsidize if you see slippage. And also some of, you could look at underwriting where it's not commercial advertising, but getting companies to do what public broadcasting does and donate money to be a sponsor, and get industries, big companies to say this program was made possible with the generous support of, whomever, the big companies in the town. That tends not to raise a lot of money, but it might offset some of the slippage that will be coming down the pike.
Bob, do you have anything else? Bob Hassing, do you have anything else?
I don't move on. I'll think up something.
Okay, Sean.
Call me, Bob.
Anything to add, Sean? Any questions? No, Mr. Berger? Mike?
Terms and conditions of the contract, is it for 1 year, or how long is the term of the contract?
This is for a 5-year term, but, and this is not negotiable to Verizon, they have a right to terminate it after 3 years with 180-day notice. Now, they've had that in all of their licenses for 7 years and have not exercised that once. But they put that in because of like what Bob Hassinger was asking about. What if like cable falls apart? We can't be locked into this kind of deal. We do have one provision in there, by the way, where because they said we have a right, even though never exercised, to terminate at the end of 3 years of the 5-year license. that the capital funding they agreed to, the 75,000, instead of paying it at 15,000 a year, it's actually 75,000 plus 0.5%. I forgot that. They have two revenue streams going into capital. It's the lump sum 75,000, and then it's an annual 0.5% on top of the other 5%. But the deal is that in light of their having an escape hatch after 3, they would have to pay all of the 75,000 within the first 3 years. So that's paid out 25,000 a year, not 15,000 a year.
But Bill, you need us to get a motion to have this
Recommended to the Board of Selectmen for their approval and signature.
Mr. Hassan.
So the capital payments are every year. In the past, there's been like once or
Right.
I think in the original license with Greater Grafton Cable, now better
Right.
known, there was a payment in the first year and a payment in the
5th year.
well, I think it was whatever,
What, something like that.
halfway through.
Here we get 3 capital payments in the first 3 years. 25,000, 25,000, 25,000. That's separate from the 5%, which is much more. And
Okay.
then in addition to the 325ers, there's an annual 0.5% just for capital. That they never prepay. That's just annual,
Okay.
the 0.5%.
Okay.
So I can accept the motion to recommend this contract to the Board of Selectmen to accept its.
I'll move that.
Second.
Second, Mr. Berger. Thank you. Let's take a roll call vote. Mr. McCavey?
Aye.
Mr. Hassinger?
Aye.
Mr. Berger?
Aye.
Mr. Molesky?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. And motion passes. Thank you so much, Bill. I appreciate it.
Bill,
Thank
you
you.
did a beautiful job, like usual. I just wanted to put that out there.
Thanks, guys. It's always great working with you. Thanks a lot.
Always a pleasure. Thank
And
you.
if you're in Beantown, you know, I know you guys for so long, call me up. We'll get a brewski.
There you
Okay.
go.
All right. Take it easy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, moving on, trying to accomplish some things here. Back to the agenda, public input. Did anybody have any public input? Seeing none, moving on. Did everybody have a chance to see the minutes that Corson distributed? We have April, May, June, and July. Anybody
Yes.
make a motion?
I make a motion, we accept as submitted. April, June, and July, if we can do them all at the same.
You want to do April, May, June, and July as a package?
I do. That's my
For a
motion.
second?
Second.
For a motion and a second, Mr. Hassinger?
You're taking a vote.
No, it's on the discussion right now.
I'm sorry. Is there discussion?
Okay.
Jump the gun. Sorry. Go ahead.
I don't think there's any discussion. I think we're now moving on to the vote.
Okay, so now we'll take a vote.
Yeah.
Mr. Hassinger?
Aye.
Mr. McCavey?
Aye.
Mr. Berger?
Aye.
Mr. Molesky?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. All right, next up is the treasurer's report with Mr. Berger presenting.
Can I have the screen?
Goodbye. Take it away.
Did everybody have a chance to take a look at the report that I passed out a week or two ago? Anybody?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Okay. All right. So we have, and can everybody see my screen right now?
Yes.
Okay. So
That's
our
good.
balance forward was $1.1 million. We brought in on this quarter $84,421.75. This is what we've expended. We actually have seven lines
but the report you have only shows 5 lines, and I'll explain that in a second. So this is representing just the bulk of the lines, a summary of the lines: salaries, service, energy, supplies, equipment upgrades. With this is what we expended for the month. This is the percentage that we have right now. We're in great shape. This line that you did not have, that I just threw it in, is our bond payment. This is the last year we have for our bond payment. I just wanted to bring it in. It doesn't look like this up here, but we know that we're going to owe $131,250 because that's the 125 payment plus the interest comes up to that number. Again, this is the last year that we're going to have for that. Are there any questions before I just scroll down? Okay, no questions. So here is our August payment. This is our June payment. We grabbed $23,684.75. And then we grabbed another Verizon payment of $60,773, which brings us up to that amount that we were just talking about right here. That's how we got that amount.
That's a quarter. We got
Yep, that's quarter payment.
whatever it was, 80, whatever, for a quarter.
That's right. That's correct.
So if I multiply that by 4, I'd be someplace close to what we're looking at for the year.
320.
Yeah.
320, 340, because we do get some other monies in there with those progressive payments that Bill was just talking about. Then you go down and you could go into the weeds if you want to. That's why I'm providing it. But as you can see, this is your energy. This is your detailed reports. If you wanted to get down to see where we were spending all that money. And that's my treasurer's report. I think we're still in great shape right now. And I'll just leave it at that. I will take any questions if anybody has any. And if they don't, then we'll call that complete.
Any questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Berger.
Welcome.
Next item on the agenda is audio issues with Charter. I'm happy to announce that we have resolved all the audio issues that we had with Charter Spectrum. It took moving heaven and earth. We were able to have our vendor Danielle and the staff from Charter Spectrum in the building at the same time, and technicians at the top of Potter Hill were in their position at the same time. So we had perfect conditions for testing. And they tested each of the individual channels and adjusted equipment as needed. There was one particular piece of equipment in the rack that dates back to when it was installed by DNR, a company that no longer exists, I'm afraid to add. But they put their heads together and they realized that one of the settings was off in that piece of equipment, and they adjusted it. So we have similar audio levels across the board on all 3 channels. And as we continue to monitor, we have seen no examples of the popping, which is what started this whole hunt for a solution. So we're happy, and we keep in contact with the Charter representative, who is the lead technician. So if there are any changes in that, we'll be sure to bring it to everyone's attention. But for now, it looks like we're good. Any questions on that? I think I've got the rest of the agenda moving out here. Room A monitors have been installed and are working and being used. Mr. Berger was instrumental in helping to get those mounted. We ran into a snag because we had to order new equipment that mimicked the capabilities of the old equipment. And the vendor that got those monitors for us was told that all existing mounts will fit the new equipment. Well, they didn't. So we had to get new equipment, and Mr. Berger helped create a rack system which mounted the TVs in the exact same position that you see them now. We ran into a snag because the TVs would have hung so low, they would have been a danger to the public. So thanks to Mr. Berger's efforts in the design shop, we were able to take care of that problem. So any questions on the monitors in room A?
Geez, you know, I have noticed, Bob, that people do complain a lot when things aren't working, but when we tell them they're fixed and we ask for other information, they're silent.
Be happy for that.
Yeah, don't rock the boat, Mr. Berger.
Okay.
Moving on, there was a link attached to the agenda for modular studio desk equipment. This came up as a question Mr. Berger proposed, that we don't have any furniture in the studio which is dedicated for television use. All of the equipment is either hand-me-down stuff. Some of it is old that came from the old TV studio in South Grafton. So I found one potential link that shows the theory behind how this furniture works in a TV studio, and it's essentially a rack system that can hold up to a dozen different configurations of platforms. So you get a grid system which provides the legs, and then 6 or 8 different modular pieces that creates a tabletop. So you can make it a 2-person desk for a news report or a multi-person committee. And even though I don't have more than one example, I thought that if anybody had any questions as to what we were looking at further down the road, this would be a good way to start.
Do you want me to share my screen to show the committee what you have on this link?
If you would like to show that, that would make this so much easier.
Okay. And there is a video, but I haven't watched the video.
So that picture on that video screen, that lattice work leg system that you can see there with the name of the company, Uniset, that's essentially the nuts and bolts of how all of the desks are used.
Let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens.
I thought I'd get sound.
I don't know if this had sound, but nonetheless, it gets the idea across. Now she's installing the name of the company in that slot, and you can get custom designed signage to go there. So we could get the Grafton TV logo to inset into that. And then as they flip this around, those are the modular pieces for the desk. In this example, they just have one piece. So this, in theory, I think is a 2-person desk. But the video also shows how quickly 2 people can set it up.
Okay. And then you go down and you can make any configuration that you're looking for, I guess.
Right, correct. You can also buy a green screen insert where the young woman inserted the company name. You can put a green screen insert there, and you can project images on that.
Oh. This is either or a stand up or a sit down.
Yep,
By
correct.
probably adding some extensions.
And I think if you scroll down, Bob, it shows at least 2 options with pricing. It's not an official quote, but
Yep, but this is the desk in
Insert,
front
yep.
of probably a green screen. These are your different options that you can have. This is $6,400. This is $7,500. And this is a mobile case, which I don't think we need. And you know, the problem that you have, Bob, is you don't have a green floor. I don't think it matters, but you have the green backing, but not the green floor.
Yeah, you got to play with the background image when that comes up,
Yeah.
because usually you have a flat image.
Good.
Doesn't you know have a wall floor break in the image.
Well,
You have your hand up?
I've been saying for a while that we need to do something because we have nothing. And we have $150,000 in our budget this year, which is not part of the money for conference room F. This is completely separate from conference room F that we have dedicated to equipment upgrades. I think we should go forward, and I think we should get a motion on the floor to expend up to $7,500 for modular studio furniture. But before you purchase, I think you've got to come back to us, Bob, and give us the exact piece, because this was just an overview. So I don't think we're going to actually vote on anything tonight, but I'm thinking, and we need opinion from the board, that your budget should be $7,500.
Is this going to be the piece of equipment that we want to go out and buy? I don't know, but this is just a concept so that the members have an idea of what we were talking about. I can go out and pursue other manufacturers because I know there are other manufacturers. So this is potentially an agenda item that will be added on next month or beyond. The one thing I liked about this particular set that it seemed to be pretty easy to set up and take down. So go ahead, Mr. Hassan.
I like the idea of we don't need to vote anything at all. Just you keep working on it. Looking at this, I'm uninspired by the look in the picture. If we keep having that kind of a thing, that it's not like covered with something, it's going to get old. But I'm sure the prices there, the number of tops, it looked to me like you can pick more than one number of tops, and so you got to be thinking about that. And what was the largest number of people they showed?
4.
It's up to 12, wasn't it?
4.
4, including a host. Like there's the guy at the end, and then 3 or 2, whatever this is.
Their configurations are the maximum amount of seats are 4.
Okay.
They've got a 1, they've got a 3, they have a 2, and then they have the 4.
Okay. And also in this picture that's on the screen right now, I see those knobs that screw on from the top, and that looks awkward.
Yeah,
but
but
you got to look at detail.
Right, but it didn't look awkward on the set when they were on the set.
Yeah, well, the one photo that I caught, the whole desk was dark. However it was lit or whatever, it was dark. And I don't know, dark might be good in any case. I don't know. But let light bounce off the desk and fill.
Let me get Sean. Sean had his hand up. Go ahead, Sean.
So, I think as to Bob H, really, I understand what you're saying, but as Mr. Berger said, we're really just looking at the concept for now, and until we get into what's available overall by various vendors, we really don't need to get into the minutiae of knobs and stuff like that. So this is going to be, my question is, this is going to be so that we can do in studio and possibly some remote work. Is that correct? No, just in studio.
The case.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm fine. As we said earlier, let's just start exploring it and get it done.
That was what I also said, Bob, continue looking. But the point is to things that at least one of us will be thinking about, or, see in this one, and there'll be a bunch more.
Mike, any comments?
Yeah, are they a local company or is it just like the online company where you just order it and it comes in? Could you look at like a demonstration model or anything like that?
I don't know that. Do you see that, Mr. Berger?
No, I haven't seen that, but when we get closer,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter where they're located because we're by Zoom anyways.
Yep.
We're gonna want the salesman to give us a demonstration.
Got it.
Now, I have someone over my shoulder here who says we should be going to IKEA.
No, yeah, no. Because this is made for the studio. This is all lightweight, and this will go in a storage rack that we can slide into the room that's off the studio, and it'll store. It's not like IKEA where we're going to have something we're not going to be able to take apart, and we're not going to be able to reconfigure for our needs. Because I can see Bob using this to interview our select board or the school committee members one-on-one, then maybe having another type of show where he's going to have 4 people sitting around the table. And we want something that will be able to get reconfigured for the needs of the studio.
Okay, so we're gonna put this on the agenda for next month and maybe beyond, and we will come back with at least 3 other proposals, so we have a good idea how they all match up. Okay, thank you, everybody, for your input. Studio activity, bus stop weather.
Oh,
I'm sorry, Sean, go ahead.
As I mentioned to you earlier, Bob, I need to step out.
Okay, that's no problem. There's no other votes, so go ahead.
Good night. Thanks, folks.
there's a voice over my shoulder, I think.
Yeah, I can say this so generically, Bob, I don't really like IKEA.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Got the base covered.
That's noted.
And nobody even knows who I'm addressing.
Okay, studio activity. We continue to have bus stop weather and the weekly sports update take place every week. Bill has had a studio session tour for a group of people that performed on the Common. The name escapes me at the moment. So they came through and they were thrilled with some of the videos that Bill has produced for the jazz trio. So they're coming in soon to do a session with him. And we have recently, as I mentioned in the past, we've done PSAs for Fiona with the master plan work. And we actually hosted a meeting this morning for Metro West building officials that got kicked out of the municipal center because of the police training. So we continue to have activity in studio, and as the fall gets here, we'll be busy because we'll be taking the cameras out remotely for it. I think there's a meeting going on at Apple Tree Arts that we've been asked to cover, so we will be there for that. Our next scheduled meeting is the day after town meeting. At least that's the proposal for 7 p.m.
I'm not gonna be able to make that meeting, but you don't have to change the meeting because I won't be there. I just want everybody to know that I have a prior commitment on that date.
Okay.
And if I'm not mistaken, and Bob, you can help me with this, I think the town administrator and the moderator are having a meeting today to discuss town meeting. I think this is the first time they're planning on 2 nights.
That's why I said it's the proposed date, because I
Yeah, but it's always, the proposed date's always, Bob, help me, Monday and Wednesday?
Monday and Wednesday.
Okay.
So
So you could be good, Bob.
I'll get more information as I can figure out whether or not that's going to be a 2-night event at town meeting. I'll get back to the members, but
Well, you won't know for sure, until you have the meeting, but the point is that there's a large number of articles because of all, we have, I think, separate articles for changing everything, little changes in all through the general bylaw. Gonna be,
I'll stay in touch. The membership, I'll stay in touch with everybody. Know we'll come up with a date somehow. All right, we reached the bottom of the agenda. All I need is one motion.
Hold on. I'm sorry to do this, but you don't have new items and old items. So, I got a new item that I just want to throw out there, not for discussion, but because I had a meeting in the studio today, I noticed that Bob's conference room needs a little bit of AV work, and I'm going to get a price on updating that conference table. I don't know what it's going to cost. I don't know if it's part of the operating budget, but I'm thinking about saw cutting the floor and putting some pipes underneath there that we didn't do, so that table has access without extension cords on the ground. I don't know. You guys have never been in the studio, but I just wanted to put it out there that I'm getting some contractors to take a look at that. And that will be some sort of an expense, but I think that can come out of the $150,000 equipment upgrade.
Go ahead, Bob.
I don't know whether you saw, I passed on an email that came by me from John, what's his name? And Fiona was in there, something about, looked like office partitions.
That's not ours. That's
Well,
yours.
Well, it was, mail came to me among others, and it says delivery to the studio. So and it's on a credit card that John.
If you get those, Bob, if you're there, refuse it and send them up to the municipal center. That's for John's cubicle that he wants to have, so he's not seen from the public.
Okay, that at least we know something about it now. But I didn't think that was any of the things that we've been talking about.
No, has nothing to do with cable. It's all municipal.
Anything else, Mr. Berger?
No, I just wanted to bring that up because I don't know what that expense is going to be. It's probably miscellaneous compared to what we're talking about, but I want to get those extension cords off the ground.
So you're going to have to put down new carpet?
No, those are carpet squares. So
Yeah.
they pull right up, and then we can core and cut and put the squares right back.
Oh, they
They're
survive. They survive being taken up.
Yeah, they're made to come up. That's
Good.
the beauty of a square.
Good. Do we have spares?
Always can spare a square.
No, I'm thinking, one of the ideas is a square gets damaged or whatever, you replace it.
Yeah, we have those in the attic.
Okay, we do have some,
Mhm.
because by the time we need them, the people who sold them to us will be long gone.
Yep. When we built the building, we had
All right.
extra stock put up.
Okay,
Okay, I need a motion.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
I just did that.
Oh, I second it then.
Okay, by roll call, Mr. Molesky,
Aye.
Mr. Berger,
Aye.
Mr. Hassinger,
I
the chair votes aye. Okay, thank you, everybody.